Do you believe that the greatest chess players of all time, such as Carlsen, Fischer, Anand, or others, have a commonality in that they have played the Ruy Lopez opening from their early days as beginners to the World Championship level? It's a common misconception among amateur players that the Ruy Lopez opening is too complex to understand and should be left to the professionals. However, I'd like to share one of my secret opening strategies, which I have previously only taught to my private students. This strategy leverages the advantages of the Ruy Lopez without its complexities and drawbacks, and it has a proven 70% win rate, which I will demonstrate shortly. The opening position you're describing arises from the moves e4, e5, knight to c3, and knight to c6, typically leading to the Ruy Lopez, also known as the Spanish game. At this juncture, White makes a significant move by playing bishop to b5, entering the Ruy Lopez variation. In response, Black's primary move is often pawn to a6, prompting White's bishop to make a choice. Typically, White retreats the bishop to a4, leading to various complex systems. However, I recommend a different approach, capturing the knight on c6 with your bishop. After this capture, Black recaptures with the d-pawn, creating space for their bishop. Now, here's where the strategy diverges from the norm. Instead of immediately taking the d7 pawn, you play knight to c3. This move has proven to be particularly effective at the amateur level. The rationale behind delaying the capture of the d7 pawn is that capturing it immediately doesn't lead to a winning position. Black can play queen to d4, putting pressure on your e4 pawn and simultaneously attacking the d7 pawn. This would allow Black to regain the pawn on the next move, which is not your desired outcome. By playing knight to c3 first, you safeguard your e4 pawn, removing the threat of Black capturing your pawn on the next move. This move is strategically strong, especially against less experienced opponents, as it sets the stage for a more favorable development of your pieces. Let's delve into the chess database to appreciate the strength of this variation. In the lower right corner, you can observe statistical data from the database, shedding light on the moves played by Black. The most common response from Black is bishop to d6, a logical move that develops the bishop and lends support to the e5 pawn. With this move, you launch a direct assault on the center by playing d4, once again targeting Black's e5 pawn. In most cases, Black captures on d4, and you regain control of the center with your queen, capturing on d4. Now, here's where the elegance of this line becomes apparent. There's only one move for Black that maintains their position, and that's the move pawn to f6. However, it's worth noting that only 30% of players opt for this move. The remaining 70% of players often make suboptimal moves, leading to unfavorable outcomes. This statistic underscores the potency of this line, offering you a win rate of around 70%, or possibly even more. The reason is that the move f6 doesn't provide any advantage to Black, it merely results in an equal position. Consequently, you have a strong chance of securing victory in the game when Black deviates from the correct response of f6. Let's explore how you can launch an attack in this scenario, but before diving into that, let's take a look at various suboptimal moves that Black might employ against you. One common mistake by Black is trying to defend the e5 pawn by developing a knight to f6. While this move may seem natural, it fails due to your move e5, which executes a simple double attack on these minor pieces. When we activate Stockfish, you can witness the evaluation soaring. It's already at plus 6.5, indicating that White is clearly winning. One of Black's pieces will be lost, putting Black in a dire position. Clearly, this is not the path Black should take. Now, let's explore another option for Black. If they play pawn to c5, it becomes quite amusing because you are still going to capture the pawn on g7 regardless. It's almost as if they are pleading with you to capture it, and you graciously oblige. After capturing on g7, you're also attacking Black's rook. However, this isn't the end of Black's woes. The only way to defend the rook is to play queen to f6. Yet, even after this move, you can opt to exchange queens. With the queens off the board, you can revert to your typical threat of playing pawn to e5. Additionally, you're still winning a piece in this line of play. Another move that black might attempt in response to your opening strategy is queen to f6. With this move, black not only defends the e5 pawn, but also offers a queen exchange, hoping you'll oblige. However, there's a crafty response available to you. Instead of agreeing to the queen trade, you can play pawn to e5 once again, launching a double attack on black's minor pieces. In this scenario, black does have a way to extricate themselves from immediate material loss. They can play queen to e6, pinning your e5 pawn to your king. Consequently, you cannot capture the pawn. Nevertheless, black's queen maneuvering provides you with several tempo gains for your development and a promising attack. Here's a tricky move I suggest in this situation: bishop to g5. This move serves multiple purposes. It develops your bishop, prepares for kingside castling, and introduces tension around the d8 square. If black's bishop retreats to d8, you can capitalize on the situation with queen to d8, delivering a checkmate in short order. However, most often, black will choose to move their bishop to e7, covering the d8 square. At this point, you can execute a queenside castling, leaving black with the move h6 as they attempt to untangle their pieces. Black may again hope for you to capture on h6 or retreat your bishop, but you can conclude the game in a spectacular fashion with queen to d8, a surprising queen sacrifice. After bishop takes d8, rook takes d8 delivers checkmate, ending the game swiftly while black is still struggling to develop their pieces. Now, let's delve into the correct move, which is statistically played by only 30% of players: pawn to f6. In response to this move, I recommend castling queenside, a move that not only enhances your king's safety, but also brings your rook onto an open file, intensifying your attack. Here's how this sequence unfolds. You start by developing your bishop to e3, contributing to your piece development. Black often responds by developing their knight, typically to f7. You then proceed to castle queenside, enhancing your king's safety and positioning your rook on an open file. Black typically castles kingside, seeking refuge for their king. You can now capitalize on the position of black's king. Play queen to c4, delivering a check to the black king and compelling it to move. After black's king moves in response to the check, play bishop to c5, making use of the pin on the f6 pawn and adding more pressure to black's position. In this line, even if black doesn't move their bishop, the pressure you exert remains uncomfortable. Sometimes, black might attempt to play b5, seemingly active at first glance. However, this move doesn't offer any substantial benefits. After queen to d4, you amplify the pressure on the d-file, and black's position becomes increasingly challenging. At the very least, black is likely to lose a pawn in this scenario, and your relentless attack continues to build. Let's discuss a few sideline variations that your opponents might employ to deviate from the main line. In the position where you've just played knight to c3, threatening to capture the pawn on e5, we previously covered the main line with bishop to d6. Now, let's consider what happens if black decides to play knight to f6, a move aimed at developing their knight. In this intriguing scenario, if your opponent doesn't defend their e5 pawn, you have the opportunity to capture it with knight takes e5. Here's how this typically plays out. Black's most common response in this situation is to play queen to d4, with the aim of regaining their pawn. However, as a clever counter, you can play knight to d3, which serves the dual purpose of retreating the knight and simultaneously counterattacking black's queen. Now, the intriguing part is that the database statistics reveal a surprising trend. The most common move by black, occurring in 96% of games, is knight takes c4. Unfortunately for black, this move is a blunder that leads to the loss of their queen in a single move. This choice by black, while prevalent, results in a highly favorable position for white, making it nearly a guaranteed win. These statistics underscore the potency of this line in the Ruy Lopez opening. Another attempt by black to challenge your position or create a threat is by playing bishop to g4. This move pins your knight to the queen, rendering it immobile. However, it's important to recognize that this move is not optimal for black in this specific position. As white, you can respond effectively by playing pawn to h3, a move that forces black's bishop to make a decision because it can't retreat without losing material. If the bishop moves away, you'll be happily capturing the pawn on e5. Therefore, bishop takes h3 is essentially a forced move. This maneuver leads to an interesting overall position. Nonetheless, in this specific context, bishop to g4 is a positional error due to the tactical opportunities it presents for white. Now, let's continue our exploration of the Ruy Lopez, covering various responses and sidelines that your opponents might employ. After bishop takes c6 and queen takes c6, you find yourself in a favorable position with a superior pawn structure and better development. From here, black often plays knight to f6, and you can respond by playing pawn to d3, opening up the position for your bishop. Black's common reply is bishop to b4, attempting to play actively. In this situation, you have several good options, including castling kingside, playing bishop to d2, bishop to g5, or even queen to g3, which exerts pressure on black's position by double attacking two pawns. For instance, if black castles kingside to defend the pawn, you can consider taking on d6, or you can apply additional pressure by playing bishop to g5, aiming to create threats on g7. If black tries a counterattack with knight to h5, you can respond effectively by capturing on e5 with your queen, putting pressure on their knight and maintaining a winning position. Now, let's rewind to the very start of the Ruy Lopez opening. In case your opponent chooses not to go for the main move, pawn to a6, which transitions into the line we've discussed, they might opt for a passive move like pawn to d6. This move, although passive, doesn't pose any significant problems for you. You can seize the opportunity to strike in the center with pawn to d4, exerting pressure and maintaining a favorable position. In situations where your opponent plays knight to f6, despite not being forced into it by the move a6, you can still aim for a similar position by capturing on c6, followed by knight to c3, resulting in a strong and advantageous position akin to the main line we've covered in this video. I'm presenting you with a straightforward opening solution here, not delving into complex grandmaster level maneuvering. It's an easy to memorize opening with minimal complexities. The goal remains the same, and you're aiming for a specific position. After white's pawn on e4 is attacked, black often responds with bishop to d6. Your next move is pawn to d4, targeting black's pawn on e5. When they capture your pawn on d4, you recapture with your queen, a move that keeps your queen actively placed for future developments. As the game progresses, you typically play bishop to g5, exerting pressure along this diagonal. Then, you castle queenside, potentially preparing for pawn advances like e5 in some variations. Objectively, the position is about equal, but you keep the pressure on your opponent. As a little puzzle for you, consider this question: why can't white play pawn to e5 right now? I'll flip the board, making it black's turn. Feel free to write down your solution in the comments below. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, you can join by hitting the subscribe button and enhance your chess skills. Additionally, if you want a more in-depth understanding of the Ruy Lopez opening, I have created a detailed video on this that many have found to be extremely helpful. You can check it out in description below. Take a moment to check out the other videos appearing on your screen right now. Thank you for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Take care and peace.